morning, Misfits. How are we doing today? Sorry for the technical difficulties. Seven Legion Studios in the chat just gave me an amazing idea. Because we are late, I am going to admonish Gerald from the Louder with Crowder show. Yes, you are admonished. Totally my fault. I did wake up on time. I just went back to bed, and it's been one of those weeks. So. I believe it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday, I think. Where I made a post because I've been seeing a trend on my page for people that I am friends with, I support, and there's a lot of criticism being leveled at J.D. Vance, right? Now, I think that there are valid concerns, but maybe not valid criticism. So I wanted to get a real debate, not a YouTube debate me, bro, logical fallacy, straw man type of debate. I wanted to have a real conversation with people that disagree with me, that can be respectful. I think that people are sort of rejecting that, and they're really starting to embrace it. As much as you don't like Dave Smith, I would say that I think we can all agree when he was on Trigger Pod, where it was a respectful debate back and forth, it's much more palatable than a Piers Morgan screaming match where you see him just, stumbling through and trying to really sort of get a gotcha moment. So, without further ado, we are going to bring in the red, white, and blue Jew, Jake Donnelly. Jake, how are you, sir?
Doing terrific. A little bit tired like yourself because I've got a 5-month-old, but
Oh.
overall doing wonderful. How are you, sans the falling back asleep?
Yes, I know. I feel very rested now. You're in trouble, sir. If I had just gotten the 4 hours of sleep that I thought I was gonna get, you might have a shot. But now it might be an even playing field. Anyway, so I have an opening statement. I don't know if you have an opening statement. And I'm gonna let you pick. Do you want to go first, or would you like me to go first? You're the guest.
I want you to go first because
Sure.
you were the one that invited me on here and put the terms of the debate. But before you do, if I may be so bold, I do want to say something on a personal level.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
First and foremost, I think a lot of the people who follow you saw your journey with your mother.
Yes.
And as somebody that helped run an old people place, and I just saw that. And I want to say the work that you're doing for America, the work that you're doing for the Jewish community, the work that you're doing for good Christians everywhere, we see that. And
Wow.
I just want to say, Baruch Dayan Hamet, blessed be he the true judge. And I'm sorry for your loss. I lost my dad 7 years ago. So I understand a little bit what that's like. Haven't lost my mom, thankfully.
Yeah, hopefully
But
not.
we see what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say thank you so much. If every American was an American like you, this country would be fantastic. It's already the greatest country in the world. But before we start the debate, I wanted to say that on a personal level. I see what you're doing, and I could not thank you enough for it.
You motherfucker trying to butter me up before I have to destroy
Exactly.
you. No, it's funny you say that you run an elderly home. I got my
In
mom.
the past.
Yeah, well, my mom, I got her into this beautiful, wonderful place in Massachusetts. It's this old mansion that they redid, and I'm telling you, if you're gonna die with grace, that's probably the thing that anybody could ask for. And that place was just so amazing. They were coming in and singing to her, giving her massages, daily baths, checking in with me. I live 3,000 miles away. It was amazing. So I just want to say, for somebody that has done that in the past, thank you as well, sir, because our elderly sometimes, unfortunately, they don't have a son like me with a network of people like you that could help me do what I did, which is let her die with grace. Sometimes they get stuck in a nursing home and they soil themselves and they aren't taken care of, and then they just pass. So, thank you, thank me. Everybody's thanked, and I'll jump right into my opening statement. All right. So, the debate prompt is: Is JD Vance MAGA or America only? I'm only going to go over a few points I want to highlight as to why the criticism I'm seeing of JD Vance from some people in the pro Israel movement is probably a little misguided and maybe entirely unwarranted. Okay. While I completely understand where these concerns come from, I think it's a poor strategy to start making accusations unless your claims are backed up with evidence. I also think claiming that anyone is just asking questions is using the same gaslighting talking point we hear from Candace Owens and Ian Carroll when they disguise their accusations as innocent curiosity. Questions with a motive that lack basis in sound reasoning aren't questions, they're smears. So, let's go over what I believe these valid concerns are, even if I disagree with the reaction to them. JD Vance's relationship with Tucker Carlson. This seems like the main argument being made by JD's critics. Tucker has shown a pattern of behavior that leaves little doubt he is not only anti Semitic, but an Islamic apologist. The idea of Tucker being able to influence the decisions of the second in line for the most powerful position in the world is a very valid concern. And my question to making this argument would be, what evidence do we have that Tucker has any influence over J.D. Vance? Tucker's pivot is very recent. And ever since Trump called him kooky, he's had no public involvement with J.D. Vance that I know of or the administration. If J.D. Vance was reposting him or out in public with him, I think this argument would be well warranted, but as far as I know, he hasn't. Think of Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens split for a moment. It looked eerily similar to what we're seeing now. Charlie never called out Candace. Charlie never folded to the pressure to call out Candace, but he did distance himself when she started getting kooky. So how do we know Vance is not doing the same thing here? I understand people want public condemnation, but trying to force that will only push somebody like J.D. Vance further away from your cause, not closer to it. Maybe the reason he's not addressing Tucker is simply out of respect for the man he once knew. It also makes sense that he doesn't want to attack the father of one of his staffers publicly and create a headline MSM can use to point out the division in the administration. Strategically and politically, I believe he's doing exactly what he should be doing, focusing on Trump's agenda, not social media drama. Now let's talk about Tucker's son, whose character has been questioned publicly, and I would argue unfairly, simply because of who his father is. While it's a valid concern to be worried he shares his father's views because of his proximity to the VP, it's completely out of line to imply he's a vile bigot publicly because of these concerns. Both of my brothers are drug addicts. Does that make me a drug addict? No. Elon Musk is a conservative. His transgender son is a liberal. The YouTuber Destiny is a woke leftist. His son is a groiper. I could go on, but you get my point. Condemning the son over the sins of the father should never be the standard. Finally, let's address his lack of pushback on Nick Fuentes. I think it's well known that Charlie Kirk and JD Vance were very close, and what Charlie's strategy for dealing with Nick? That's right, he ignored him. I'll give the benefit of the doubt to JD. He's just doing what Charlie would have and not addressing the trolls or giving them oxygen. The bottom line is this. Guilt by association and judging someone by what they don't do is not a standard I set for calling people out. Making assumptions that fit into confirmation bias should be left to the grifter class, and we should hold ourselves to a higher standard. I look forward to hearing Jake's arguments, and let's get to it.
I might be throwing a curveball here because I agree with a lot of what you said on the macro. I just don't agree on the micro. So the idea that we cannot put forward bad faith arguments, absolutely agree with that. The idea that you can't blame the son for the sins of the father, absolutely agree with that. But there are some sticking points in the things that you said. I think that's where the differences come. Now, the real curveball that I'm going to throw is you're not going to hear me talk a lot about Israel, with the lone exception about how it deals with foreign policy while we have this debate. And I am, though, going to talk about what it means to be Jewish in America, because it's important that we have freedom of religion in America. And this is where I might be going a little bit beyond the pale for some people. I don't think that JD Vance is the person that is going to help our race and religion relations in the United States of America. I think he is going to hinder it, which is why I had that video yesterday saying that, does JD Vance recognize how Tucker Carlson is his Louis Farrakhan, harkening back to that famous picture that mainstream media didn't let us talk about. They didn't let us talk about the relationship between Louis Farrakhan and Jeremiah Wright and Barack Obama. And if they had, we would have immediately figured out that Barack Obama's foreign policy was going to be diabolically bad for the entire world, and he was going to destroy race relations in the United States as we know it. I see that relationship with Tucker and JD Vance on a similar level, and we can get into that. But my real issue, as we're talking about JD Vance, is he MAGA? Or is he America only? I think he's America only. And I think he has bought into the idea of what a lot of populists, both on the right and the left side of the aisle, that we need to pull back. And it's going to be, it's America, not just first, it's America only. And there's never been a good time for that. And the real problem that we have, and you kind of hinted at it, but the real problem that we have with JD Vance is he actually doesn't have a long history in politics. For a lot of people, they see that as a good thing. But for me, when he says something and then when he doesn't say something, I now have to read the tea leaves because he didn't really do anything as a senator in terms of his relationship with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was the one who was begging Trump back when they were buddies, right? He was begging Trump to pick him as the VP. And this was a guy who only made it as a senator because of Peter Thiel putting in $15 million in his Ohio senatorial race. He was in the middle of the pack before that happened. And I don't have a problem with that. My problem, as I said before, is I just don't know what JD Vance is. So I have to take what he says, and then I have to take what he doesn't say in certain situations and figure out what it is that he truly believes. So that's where, and I do have a bunch of examples, obviously, but that's where I think that big disconnect goes. It's we really don't have a lot of concrete evidence, and JD Vance is intentionally, in my opinion, doing that. PR guy for the Marines, wicked smart dude. He knows what he's doing. And that's a lot of the issue that is coming from the pro Israel crowd as well as the Jewish American crowd going, okay, we see all of this and we kind of hear what you're not saying just as loudly, if not louder, than the stuff that you do say.
Okay. Okay, so what I would say is I heard a couple of points in your opening that I can just sort of start with. Not in he's not in politics long, so you kind of you don't have a good baseline for him.
As a politician.
As a politician, right? I would argue, and I think a lot of people would argue, that's people like that, right? People are tired of the career politicians. They're tired of the smarmy, talk with your hands and deflect and don't answer questions type of politician. One of the reasons why I was actually excited about JD Vance was he was only in Washington for 2 years. He was a businessman, and the other point that I noticed you brought up was he's a Marine. I think we need more Marines. I think that they take the oath for the most part. I would say the vast majority of Marines and businessmen are the people that we need in Congress, right? And I do understand your argument. I just think it's a weak argument to say, I don't know, so I assume and presume based on what somebody doesn't say. Here's what JD Vance has said. He has condemned Nick Fuentes, okay? He has come out, but he did it in a very politician way, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't go into ad hominem. He just sort of took it respectfully. And what he's also said is he's there, and this was just on his interview with Sean Hannity recently. He said he's there to advance Trump's agenda. He's there to be a force multiplier for Trump. He is not there to deal with his own personal like issues, right? If some troll on the internet, Nick Fuentes, is calling his wife a jeet, he's adult enough where he just goes, all right, whatever. I don't care. It's Nick Fuentes. Who gives a shit? I was just watching Greg Gutfeld last night, and it's so funny. Like Jim Norton, Nick Fuentes was brought up on Greg Gutfeld, and Jim Norton was like, I'm so tired of hearing about Nick Fuentes. It's not, if he says something and you believe it, it's not because he's influential. It's because you're an idiot, right? So most people understand that Nick Fuentes is a shock jock, the new Howard Stern of politics. And I think that most people dismiss him and ignore him. And I don't think, if we're going to make assumptions, I'm giving benefit of doubt to not only the person that Donald Trump trusts, but the person that Charlie Kirk trusted. Right? One of the biggest selling points for me on JD is Charlie Kirk. Um, and I think that it's been more than debunked that Charlie was never abandoning Israel. Charlie was very pro-Israel. And I think if that is a concern, I know that you said it's not going to be, but he was also very pro-Jew, and I think that that's where the majority of Christian Zionists come from in America. We don't come from it as a nation state of Israel argument. We come from a pro-Jewish people. I will bless thee that bless them argument.
Yeah, and I understand that. I just when you talk about JD Vance, right? The fact that he is a new politician, that means he has to answer the questions. And in the video that I did yesterday, I was talking about how the GOP really didn't have a primary in 2024. The Democrats had it worse. They anointed Kamala Harris, but the president of the United States didn't think that we deserve to listen to him debate people.
No, that's not what
I
happened. He ran unopposed. It's not
didn't
like
run
they did. Well,
unopposed.
it's
He
not like
didn't go to Iowa. He didn't go on the debate stage. He
yeah.
treated GOP voters who had concerns and wanted him to answer questions. He dismissed them, and it was a smart political move. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it was a beautiful, brilliant
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
political
I
move.
meant in the general. I don't know what
Oh,
I was thinking.
all good. No, okay, sorry. Yeah, so he treated the voters as if we were the ones that actually owed him as opposed to the other way around. And again, this is a lot of what the discussion is. And I think with JD Vance, I just want to clarify really as we get into this debate. Are we having this debate because we both assume that JD Vance is the presumptive 2028 GOP nominee?
I mean, I think that what most people assume is he's the front runner right now, right?
Right.
So, but
Exactly.
it's 11 months in. So
It's
I
11 months in, but if we didn't have that primary in 2024, somebody like me, while people are talking about JD Vance in the same way that they talked about Trump in 2024, just okay, he's going to be our guy. It's like, no, we actually need to have debates. And
sure.
one of the things that JD Vance hasn't done is answered questions. And this is where it comes like, okay, we see you acting this way to one question, we see you acting this way to another question. That becomes really important.
Can you give me
And
an
that was the
example?
issue was
Can you give me an example of where acted one way and then acted another way?
Yeah, absolutely. Sloan. With Sloan, that's what he did.
Mhm.
He went after Sloan for asking about Buckley the Younger, not the brother of Tucker Carlson, but the
Mhm.
staffer on his staff. That's how he reacted there. When it comes to something like, and this is where I was going to bring up the Jewish issue, I probably need to work on that phrasing a little bit. But when it comes to what JD Vance thinks of Jews, when you have a groiper infest a TPUSA event, and there's more and more groipers at the TPUSA events. And the Groiper says, and I'm going to paraphrase because the dumbass doesn't know the difference between persecute and prosecute, but he said that the religion of Judaism persecutes Christianity. And this is where JD Vance, the smart guy, the PR guy, that's what he was, Marine PR guy. And I need to hammer that because people who think he's intentionally, or I should say, just incidentally missing some questions, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's a terrific politician while not having been in politics for even a decade at this point. But to the question of, does the religion of Judaism persecute Christianity? The response to that, as somebody who is claiming to be able to win the culture wars the same way that Donald Trump does, and the same way that Ron DeSantis does, the answer to that is so absolutely asinine as to be historically illiterate. It's in fact the inverse of
Mhm.
that. Grow up. You're not a victim. You are in the United States of America. Now go make something of yourself. Instead, he essentially agrees with the implication of that question. Now, from a Jewish perspective, that's awful. But from an American perspective, that's even worse.
Mm.
And that's where the Nick Fuentes stuff comes in because the younger generation isn't being told by their leaders, by their politicians. And this is where JD Vance really fails. Hey, this is the greatest country in the world. JD Vance is the embodiment of the American dream, a guy that grew up in Appalachia with a mom who was an addict as well. And look at him. He's the vice president of the United States. But instead of giving them an empowering message, he actually bleeds or not bleeds in, he buys into that idea that yes, you are a victim. You are, in fact, somebody who has been attacked your entire life because you're a male. Shut the fuck up and grow up and get a job and make something of yourself. But
I,
that's not how JD Vance talks.
I
So we
would say
get
that
that attack.
I would
Yeah,
say that you have a decent argument to say that his answer wasn't well stated, right? Like, but
yeah,
if if that's like the one thing that you'd have, right? And I
it's not.
understand you probably have more, but what I'm saying is, if what I'm seeing is, right, I'm seeing if JD gives an answer that is more diplomatic and maybe trying not to upset um, one side or the other. It's sort of like it's sort of fence riding, which you have a valid criticism. You have a valid criticism for fence riding. I see a massive overreaction from the Jewish community, right? Like, so let me just explain. I when I saw that debate, when I saw that question, I posted it and I said, this is the perfect answer for somebody who has a divide in the party, and they're America first, and they're trying to redirect the question away from a foreign nation to an American nation. As far as him saying the Jews persecuting the Christians, technically, historically accurate, just but it's definitely misleading. I'll give you that, right? It's
Oh,
misleading. There
yeah.
have been Jews that have persecuted Christians. It's not, but it's not the majority, right? And in fact, there would be more Christians that have persecuted Jews historically. For instance, the Crusades, right? Everybody understands that. We're going to agree on that. So his answer wasn't great, but right? Was it completely out of pocket? I would say no. I would say he could have done better, and he can do better. I would say you have a valid argument. He
Mhm.
can do better to address the concerns that we have in the country right now with I hate using the word, but it is a true word, the growing rise of anti-Semitism. That being said, I don't see any of his actions that are really leading me to say like, oh, that's I need to jump from that to he's cozying up to groypers. I don't personally see it, but I understand that that's subjective. People are going to see things differently based off of their own personal experiences. So I do understand your concerns. I just don't think that one thing where he said, well, the Jews persecuted Christians, and we have a Christian biblical tie to Israel. You also have to remember, in the context of where he was when he was answering that question, he was at a Christian event. So he was pandering to the people at that event.
That's my point.
Correct. And
That he's a politician,
politicians
right?
pander. You can't get mad when politicians pander.
Yes, I can. So that's
Well,
my
you
whole
can.
point. I'm trying to hold them to a standard. We have completely disregarded standards. Just because every single politician seems to be worse than the last one, that doesn't mean, especially for somebody like me, who is an actual conservative, whereas JD Vance is a self confessed postmodern liberal. Like, no, that's not what I want out of you. You haven't earned my vote. You think that my vote is something that is owed to you. That's not how this works. You have to prove it to me. And this is really where people are having an issue on the Jewish side. And I get it. We're 2%. Nobody cares about our vote. But if you want a better America, then you have to have better relations in America. You have to stop people from getting at each other's throats. So, what's actually the perfect situation and setting to say, you know what, that is a terrible question? It's there. And we've
Sure.
seen, and this is where like wonderful Charlie Kirk, rest in peace, he attacked people that asked questions like that. He actually, in
Yeah.
his most forceful pushbacks, were questions like that,
No, I
where he
agree.
said,
I
don't
agree.
you
He's
think
not.
that way? Right.
I
So JD Vance can't do it. You want to win votes? You do
sure.
it that way. Especially the younger people don't vote.
I
Why are
can
you pandering to them?
I can agree. I don't like I don't like to make the argument of he's not Charlie Kirk, because nobody was. Charlie was a one of a kind, amazing person who just answered every question fucking perfectly in my opinion. Um, but what is I noticed you said post liberal. Um, what is your issue with post liberal? Because as far as I know, it's just the belief that modern liberalism conflicts with capitalism and free markets.
No, it's top down economics, it's state run, it's governmental power, it's all of that. And when it comes to JD Vance, he's on the record as saying, I'm paraphrasing again, but he's one of those guys who says, "Hey, if you give me the power, I will fix this." That
Yeah.
scares me from politicians. That's why I'm a conservative. I want the government to get the hell out of my life, and I don't want you to have more power. And then when you combine that with the fact that he's essentially an isolationist, even though he's never really come out and said it, he does back NATO, he does back the UN,
Well, if he
but
backs the NATO and the UN, then he's not an isolationist.
so
What does he ever
that was
say?
the next hold on, that
Yeah.
was the next line that I was getting at. All of his actions, and this is where we have an issue with the fact he's only been in politics for a little bit, but all of his actions pretty much point to the fact that he's going to be an isolationist. He doesn't back Ukraine, which fine, because he's not somebody who wants to deal with the quote unquote forever wars. But when it comes to something like, hey, you talk about the forgotten people, right? So you want to bring down costs at home when the Houthis are messing up all of the shipping lanes. JD Vance was the one guy in the Trump administration who was saying, I don't want to do that. We saw that leak, right? You know that story where the fact
Hmm.
that JD Vance was against the strikes of the Houthis. Every
Hmm.
single one of those ships, I think it was like 130 that got turned around. That's $1 million per trip when it has to go around the Cape of Good Hope. That raises prices. I've seen your work. You do amazing work with your grouting in your bathrooms. I
Sure.
believe you do some other work as well. You're fantastic
Thank you.
at it. But you know when you have to buy supplies, when the shipping lanes get messed up, where do the prices go?
No,
Do they
I
go up?
remember I was doing a job one time, and it was when the Panama Canal shut down years ago,
Right.
and we had to wait 15 weeks for a tile to come in, and I had already done the demo, so my
Right.
customer had to
Ooh.
wait 15 weeks,
Ooh.
and the tile was from Italy, and it was very very expensive. So I no no
Right.
no I do understand.
So it's that. Yeah.
I think that a disagreement on some type of military action can be attributed to many different reasons. I don't think that you can make the jump to he's an isolationist because he didn't want to strike a shipping lane, and I would say that again. I think that a lot of people, and this happens with everybody, by the way. This happens with me. This happens with, like, let's say the 2A community, okay? I don't like Trump's position on the 2A community. Okay? Like he's said some things in the past. He's gone red flag laws. I don't like Pam Bondi being in charge. But when Trump says something like that I don't agree with on the 2A community, I don't jump to Trump is anti 2A, if that makes sense.
Of
I
course.
I jump to I disagree with Trump on this. We should get vocal about it. And this is why completely valid to get vocal about it. Right? Now, earlier you brought up JD Vance's response to Sloan. Okay? I'm I'm saying that when what Sloan did, right? And I love Sloan. Even though she unfollowed me, still love Sloan. I want to make up. Okay? I understand emotions are high. You feel like you're being attacked. Misfit gives you constructive criticism. Bang, I'm going to unfollow you. Totally fine, right? Um I think that JD Vance's response to her, as opposed to his, full-throated response to somebody criticizing his wife, was because he's reading the situation that's going on and he wanted to take a clear position. Do not attack my staffer, because what it does is it brings up a media headline of people are questioning Tucker Carlson's son is the. I think that JD Vance and I think that Trump sometimes they look at it. They look at through the lens of, are we going to? Is this going to weaken the administration? Right? Attacking JD Vance's wife is not going to weaken the administration, right? But calling out one of his staffers and implying his staffer's a vile bigot, right? That could. So I think that maybe, and I don't want to give him benefit of doubt on anything. I'm not being an apologist for him. I'm saying that's a possible reason why there was a disparity between his response to a White House staffer versus his wife. I think that he's compartmentalizing and he's keeping his personal life separate from his professional life. And what Sloan did was, in my opinion, very wrong, right? You got a young kid who has not one post on the internet that is griper. He has never displayed any behavior that would lead anyone to question him. I don't even know if he has social media. And
From
she
what I've checked, no.
and she makes this implication that that Tucker Carlson's entire family is racist. Is JD Vance's son a vile bigot? That's not just asking questions. That's the bullshit that Candace Owens does. And it's an implication. It's not a question. So I think that JD might have read that. And I think that I would have read that and I would have gotten pissed. Especially if Tucker Carlson's son is nothing like Tucker Carlson. If I was JD Vance as a boss, as a mentor, as somebody who might be with him a lot and might view him as a personal friend, I would be like, "Fuck you, dude." I'd be like, "That kid's amazing." I think that he might think, "My wife can take care of herself. This is a young kid who works for me." So that could be the disparity. And again, I'm just trying to give you reasons why I'm trying to expand your horizon on possible scenarios. So while you do have valid concerns, this is also a valid explanation.
I was it's funny that you said that. I was going to completely agree that the way you set that up, fair, completely fair. The issue that I have is this isn't Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson vis-a-vis Charlie Kirk, right? And Megyn Kelly, everybody that wants them to denounce them, and they don't because they're friends. And I can't stress this part enough. I don't give a fuck who anybody is friends with. I
Sure.
sincerely don't. And
Sure.
it infuriates me. Granted, it doesn't take really much to get me angry, but it
Yeah.
infuriates me that people keep using they're my friends, so I
Well,
won't call them out. I'm like,
purity
then
test. Yeah.
fucking
Purity
stop the
tests.
job.
Purity
Yeah.
tests. We should let the left do purity tests.
Yeah. Well, but the problem with the politicians, and this is the difference. If you're friends with a pundit and you're a politician, now we need to know if you think the same things that they do. And when you don't say you don't, correct? I hate double negatives, but right, when you refuse to say that you don't disagree with those people, then why not? Because it would be so easy. And we've seen the inverse that when you do disagree with something, you come out and you let them have it. Like that was a haymaker
Yeah.
that granted on the internet. But for JD Vance, you are friends with Tucker. And
Well,
Tucker's brother is a massive
yeah, no,
grapefruit.
Tucker Carlson's a
So we
piece.
need to know that. How
Yeah.
close is that relationship?
Tucker
That
Carlson is
is
a
a
piece of shit. Look, my friend,
right.
my friend,
And he's
all
right there.
yeah,
He was, by like just one point, at the Charlie Kirk, not just the memorial, but at that award ceremony that they gave him, who was at the White House taking pictures with everybody, including JD Vance.
mhm.
It was every single right winger, and it was also Tucker Carlson. So that's a very close relationship that still exists. And I need to
I
know
wouldn't
how
jump.
close.
I wouldn't make that jump. Very close.
How do you know?
He was there. Well, he was there because of his relationship to Charlie Kirk. Here's my argument for to a very reasonable explanation for why Tucker is still in the circle, in the orbit, right? Tucker Carlson, very like I said in my opening, it's been a very recent pivot, right? It's very
Gee.
very recent, right?
What was Fox News? When did he leave Fox News
No,
2 years ago?
no. Look, I'm talking about his crazy anti-Zionism is a very recent pivot. He's always been kooky, fucking UFOs. He's always been like a little off, right? I was scratched by a demon. You're not going to have any argument from me about the red flags that Tucker displayed, but hindsight is 2020, and those red flags were not really red flags at the time because of maybe tribalism, because you sort of don't realize like because I remember making a post where I go, you know what? Now that I think about it, now that I'm kind of being critical of Tucker Carlson, I am noticing a lot of stuff that I just completely missed before. But here's what I'm saying. Because we know that his pivot is very recent this year on the crazy the ramping up of anti-Zionism, we can assume that Charlie was really good friends with pre-crazy Tucker Carlson, and we can assume that um, that
Vance.
that JD Vance was really good friends with pre-crazy Tucker Carlson. I have a perfect example for you, and it's very recent. If anybody's been paying attention to this Nima guy, who is all of
Oh,
the sudden, it seems like it's overnight, he is just completely pivoted to identity politics and attacking European Jews versus Ashkenazi Jews and or Muslim Jews. I don't fucking know, but
I'll explain, but yes.
but here's the deal. A week ago, I was thinking that guy is my really good friend. He just invited me to go down and meet him in Miami for an event. And within the past 48, 72 hours, I don't recognize that guy anymore. Right? Now, I came out with a very public and respectful, hey bro, this ain't it. Right?
I
And
reposted.
and he
Yeah.
comes back and he goes, "Oh, that's a shame because blah blah blah." And I replied with, "I just think you need to reassess. I think you need to figure it out and come back and we'll accept you with open arms, but this ain't it and I'm not going to support this. I got to unfollow you. I can't associate with you and blah blah blah." Most people aren't me, right? Most people do not want to do that, right? Most people want to hold on to the idea of the former friend that they had. I think this is a human thing, which is a very likely explanation for why Charlie never called out Candace Owens, for why JD Vance is not calling out Tucker. And I think that what we're seeing this woke mind virus on the right with Israel derangement syndrome. And we're seeing a rise in radical identitarianism where it's like everybody's like, this is what I think is happening with Nima. A lot of people are giving me the conspiracy theories. Please stop, okay? Please knock it off. He's not really a Jew. He's an op. He's paid by Qatar. Just stop, okay? Occam's razor is what I always go by. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying don't theorize until you have evidence. It's actually what this entire debate is about. Is don't theorize till you have evidence. So, what I think as of right now, Occam's razor is suggesting he's getting trapped into the social media clickbait like this spiral that a lot of people get into. I used to be a victim of this when I was on TikTok. Somebody calls you out, and then you start going on a rant, and then you double down, triple down, and before you know it, you're going, "Hey, fucking Ben Shapiro's not a real Jew," and it's like, so. What I would suggest is to 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 entertain the possibility that the reason why JD Vance is not coming out against Tucker is that he's holding on to that idea of pre 2024, pre 2025 Tucker, which wasn't perfect, but way better than what we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my question, just real quick, if you're a politician, do you have that luxury? Talking about how I don't give a fuck about who your friends are. I don't want friendly politicians.
Sure.
I want politicians that will run you over. That's my favorite thing about Trump.
For
That when
sure.
Trump decides to just put on the accelerator, get the fuck out of the way, he will destroy you. That's awesome. Peace through strength is fantastic. It's also another thing that when I see the leak with the Houthi strike from JD Vance, I don't think he's going to do peace through strength, which means things are going to rise in terms of our economy. We're not going to talk about the welfare state that we have, which is the real issue. He's talking about pulling back the military. It's like, okay, but the military is we spend the least percentage of our military and the GDP that is than we have in ages. So like we're doing really well here, but to bring it back to the actual point, I don't give a fuck about your friends. So I don't think that, and then I'll ask you if you
Yeah.
agree or disagree. I don't think you have that luxury
Well, I
as
actually
a
I actually would I
politician.
would push back on that because I think politicians actually do the opposite. I mean, you look at what just happened yesterday or the day before. Trump had a fucking Islamic terrorist essentially in the White House, and he was being nice to him,
Yeah,
right?
don't like that.
No, no, no. But I'm saying it's like it's called diplomacy. Politicians, they don't have the luxury of, being buddy buddy with somebody, but they do have a general mindset and baseline and default setting of being diplomatic. Like they don't think in terms of, you know,
How's
so
yeah.
how people on social media are going to view them. They think of how it's going to look in the mainstream media, right? So when you see JD Vance going after Tucker Carlson, immediately MSM, right? Immediately CNN headlines. I'm saying I think that politicians actually not only do have the luxury, it's sort of their thing. It's sort of their thing to not get into public fights that they don't feel are beneficial to whatever they're doing. I think that we can all just look. You don't have to take JD Vance at his word, right? You do not have to take him at his word. you should be very critical of your leaders. You should actually always assume the worst. What I also don't like though is assume the worst, but don't say something about somebody publicly unless you have evidence because it destroys your credibility, right? So if you don't have the okay, JD Vance just reposted Tucker Carlson. If you had that, we wouldn't be having this debate. Okay? We would not be having this debate if JD Vance was reposting Tucker Carlson. It just would not be happening. Right? But if he's following Tucker Carlson, then somebody goes, "Oh my god, he's still how dare he not unfollow somebody?" It's like, "Come on, dude." It's like he's following Andrew Tate. Do I think that JD Vance is a fan of Andrew Tate? No. I think
Or the
that
Hodge twins.
he's following the Hodge twins. I don't think that JD Vance is like a social media addict going through and thinking of the importance of his follow list. I think that he probably followed Andrew Tate the same way I followed Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is currently suing me right now. He's literally suing me, and I used to follow him. Just, if JD Vance never went, "Oh, I better go unfollow," that's what I'm saying. So I think that we need to use a little bit of discernment, and I think that like I said, the criticisms, some of them are very valid. Especially, I think the strongest argument you've made so far in this debate was his answer to the Groiper at the event. Right? That's a very valid argument. The rest of them, the Tucker argument, I'm not seeing.
So that's the thing. If you don't say it, then people are going to jump to conclusions. And when it comes to somebody like a Tucker Carlson, we can conclude a lot of things at this point.
Yes.
He's pro Iran, right? World War III. He's the worst foreign policy guy I've ever seen. And I pretty much have seen JD Vance follow the same type of foreign policy. And
Mm,
it doesn't actually align with what Trump says.
you
Okay, you
said you
talked
said
about
that there was
diplomacy. Hold
one
on.
strike that he disagreed with. I don't see. He's following Trump's policy.
So, how that you talked about diplomacy, right? How was JD Vance in any way diplomatic when he had Zelensky in the Oval Office? That was one of the worst diplomatic scenes I have ever seen.
I
That was
disagree. I
that
disagree.
conversation. Do you think that worked well or do you think
Yes.
that went poorly?
Yes, I think that was exactly what he needed. I think that Zelensky came in to the Oval Office and showed disrespect, and there were a bunch of cameras on Trump and JD, and when JD stepped in, he was saying, "You do not come to America and start disrespecting the president." And I think that it was widely agreed upon that that's exactly what Zelensky was doing. Look,
And act that way in other countries. He can do the same thing. He
well,
doesn't.
I think that that's
That's where it's really weird then. And that's my problem with JD Vance. JD Vance doesn't follow his own logic and his own rhetoric. The
what other
dude
examples are you where what
with Israel.
well, I don't
He
understand.
implied that Israel controls United States
Okay,
presidents.
let's talk about that because I think that I would look. I don't want anyone to come at me for this, so let me try to word this carefully. I think that there is more than a high likelihood that there has been corrupt leaders in Israel in the past. Right? I would say Ehud Barak was not the best. Um,
Don't like him.
so I think that we can discern what JD Vance was saying, where he said, "Hey, America has had corrupt administrations before. Israel has had corrupt administrations before, and they may have had two corrupt administrations at the exact same time. And Israel may have. I think that we could say will has right.
Then say it.
Well,
Don't
he's
be a coward.
well, I think that he was just answering the question fast. You got to remember, all right, I've been in real-time situations many times, and when you answer a question, you don't get like the luxury of explaining every single detail of what you're saying. You just sort of speak in a reactionary way. You only have a minute or so to do it. So I think that what he was saying is he's like, yeah, Israel's controlled past presidents. I would say that Israel may have controlled like maybe Bill Clinton or George Bush or I don't know, right? Where there was there could have been leverage
Aren't you
leverage.
talking about evidence? Like,
No, no,
isn't
no.
this your whole thing
I'm
that you've
saying
been
could.
talking
I
about?
said could. I said could. I didn't say did. But I'm saying there could have been leverage, right, for certain military actions based off of a little back scratching. What I think JD Vance was saying is nobody Donald Trump is not your prior presidents where there was a give and take back and scratch. It's not the old guard way of doing politics.
Yeah, it absolutely is. How'd we get that plane from Qatar? Why are F-35s going to Saudi
Well,
Arabia?
I don't agree with the plane from Qatar, but that kind of proves my point, right? If you're saying that there are favors that are done between world leaders which may influence policy decisions, then that would mean that it's reasonable to assume that Israel has quote controlled a prior U.S. president.
One, that's not what he means by controlled, and we all know it. He means the actual conspiracy theory that the Jews run the world. That's what he is implicating.
I
He
didn't hear
is,
that.
man. This is my gig. Like when it comes to combating anti Semitism, I work in the nonprofit. This is the stuff that everybody goes, oh, wow, how did we know that this was going to happen? It's like because we were pointing it out 2 years ago.
Yeah, I
But
won't. I
then
wouldn't make
everybody's
that.
saying,
I just wouldn't make that jump. I wouldn't. I
right,
wouldn't make that jump. That's what he was. That's what he was saying. I
he was
think that.
implying that Israel controls United States presidents. There
Eh,
was no other way to read what he said.
like I said, I think
He's
that what he was saying is like I think that what he was saying is that I would say America controls Israel right now, right? Like would
Yeah, it has it by the balls.
correct. Okay. Would you agree that there may have been a time where Israel has had America by the balls?
Not once.
Not
How?
one
When?
time. Not one
No.
time. I
Wait,
mean,
what?
look,
From
the relation.
1947? Hold on. From 1947 to 1967, when literally America had an arms embargo on Israel. After that, when America was forcing Israel to buy all of its equipment and military, like the plane, the Lavi, they had to shutter. Israel had to shutter its own actual air force. They were developing a fighter jet that would have contested the F-16 on the global markets. It's only been, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I think it's fantastic. As an American, I love the fact that we get so much from Israel. But
Sure.
to imply that this relationship has been in the other way is just to buy into the conspiracy
No,
theories,
no, no. Look,
which
I think that
Tucker Carlson does.
I think that America is the benefactor of our relationship with Israel, right? Or the
Absolutely.
beneficiary. Sorry, the
Yeah.
beneficiary of the relationship with Israel. The talking point that oh we give them aid and blah blah blah. The ROI on our relationship with Israel is heavily favored to America, right? So
Mhm.
but again, right? I think that you might and look, maybe I'm just giving him too much benefit of doubt, right? I just when I heard it, right, and this is what I was saying earlier. I think that sometimes you hear a response and two people hear two completely
Yeah,
different things,
of
right? I
course.
think that what I heard was I heard, hey, there's been corrupt people in the past that have probably. I think it was more of an indictment on the previous administration than anything, right? Where he was saying, yeah, our politicians have been controlled by many nations in the past. This president, Donald Trump, is not controlled by anyone. And that would have been a better way to answer it. And that
Yes.
would have been a much better way to answer it.
Right.
So
And
if
that's
if that's
sorry.
what I heard and you heard something different, then I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree. And but I do understand why you heard that, right? Like
Right.
I think that confirmation bias does take over everybody. It's not an insult to have confirmation bias. It's just a natural human thing. So like I think that a hammer will always see a nail, and I think that validly, right? It's almost like it's almost like it's assumed that Jews are on edge with especially with what they're seeing, right? So I just want to make sure that I sort of pull some of you back into the center where I'm like, okay, use objective um use this a framework. Use a framework for your arguments where you don't push people away by assuming JD Vance is Tucker Carlson, right? And I don't think that's what you're doing, but I think that some people are doing that.
Yes, and I think thank you, by the way, for that distinction, and I'm trying not to do that, and that's why it's like, when I started this, I wanted to just come at JD Vance from the right wing, not as a Jew, but as an actual American conservative, right?
Yeah.
That's how I really have a problem with JD Vance. The Jewish aspect is maybe the thing that most people aren't getting, because when it comes to us, we can't, so long as you're a Jew who actually practices the religion of Judaism, that it means something to you. Because I'm a conservative Jew that supports the United States of America and supports conservatism and supports Israel. And the reason that I can do that is because I don't see any digression at all between those three things, because my morality tracks for all three of those things. Thank you, big man. Appreciate that. But what we have a problem with as American Jews, where our vote doesn't quite matter because of our population, right? So this is kind of a
No,
fringe
it definitely
discussion.
matters. It matters in New
But
York. It matters in a bunch of places,
true,
but it doesn't
we're
matter in
not going
general.
with the
No.
left, right? We're not voting for Democrats. Jews who are Jewish are not voting for Democrats.
Actually,
That's a no.
they heavily favored to vote for Democrats.
Don't like those ones. They are heavily
But
favored.
you can't
Most
argue
of
that they
them,
do.
they're so let me
Statistically,
rephrase
I
that. When
think
I say
it's
they're Jewish and they're secular Jews,
secular.
look at the
Yes, correct.
Orthodox.
You're
If
talking.
right,
So you know what? You did make the distinction. Religious Jews are not voting for Democrats. Correct.
right. And I am religious despite not really looking at it right now, but I am religious. I go to Chabad. They're my favorite type of synagogue. There are a couple others that are terrific out there, but that's my jam right now. With all of that being said, what's happening is people like me who are hardcore conservatives, we are now lost because we're looking at the right wing and we're seeing the direction that it's going. We
Sure.
used to point out, and this is what I want to go back to, right? I want to go back to hammering Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna. I
Yeah.
want to keep mashing them, and I'm fucking great at it. But right now, I've got problems with Thomas Massey, and you are doing a great job with Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you finally passed one bill, and it was the Epstein one.
He passed,
20
so Thomas Massey passed a bill that every single in 13 years in Congress, Thomas Massey passed one bill and every single Democrat voted for it.
Yeah.
Right? And
Don't think we're
when I
doing the
say
right thing.
that, people are like, "Yeah, but every Republican voted for it too." My point is every single Democrat voted for it because it was the Democrats' bill that the GOP was forced to adopt, as
Exactly.
opposed to a GOP bill, which we know because the Democrats are a fucking cult, would never have voted for. Right? So
Uh-huh.
Thomas Massey, I think he's I think that he's Icarus flying very close to the sun. Right?
Melting.
I think he's melting. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Uh, s
continue.
yeah, so the point with that being, we see the issues on the right side of the political aisle, and we want to bring it back to the center as well. Like, we're
Sure.
all trying to get back to that, if not moderate, at least the core of the Republican Party.
Sure.
Problem is, we're seeing where it's going and the lack of pushback by
Okay.
many people. Like, for fuck's sake, did you see Nayland Haley yesterday?
Yeah, I did. I saw some of his comments. Seems like he's
S-
an idiot, but he
Yes.
made one good comment, and people are highlighting that, and it's like, okay, he made one good comment, but then there was like 2 hours of bullshit. So it's like,
Right. And that's what I want to get back to. I want to have one problematic thing and 2 hours of great.
sure,
But it's mostly bullshit right now. And it's that younger generation that is pushing the mostly bullshit. And with the populist, they respond to the people below them as opposed to the other way around.
sure.
And that's a real issue when you have Marjorie Taylor fucking Greene going about and trying to do everything she can, honestly, to disrupt this administration.
Hell hath no fury, like a woman's scorn. Trump didn't approve her Senate run, and that's where this is going.
Right.
Look, here's the deal. What I think we should do, right? And this is the whole crux of this debate, right? Is it really a good strategy, and is it worth our time to go after somebody right now that maybe is flirting with the idea of anti-Semitism and risking pushing him away? So, like, I wanted to say something earlier, right? I have one of my best friends, right? He's moderate, he's middle, he's voted Democrat and Republican. He's friends with a communist, right? A literal communist, right? And I met this communist, uh, and he doesn't want to hang out with me no more. Not my friend. My friend wants to hang out with me, but like we, my buddy told me, he goes, "Don't bring up politics." I go, "I won't." And the communists did. And I was like, "What?" And one of his arguments was like, well, I think that there were no black people around when the Constitution was written. And I go, fucking, I was like, okay, here we go. So anyway, he like, my friend is not going to stop being friends with his communist friend, right? He's not going to do it. I'm not going to force him to do it. If I was to say to my friend, if you don't stop being friends with that guy, I'm not going to be friends with you, my friend would probably go, fine, we're not friends anymore. And that's what I'm trying to warn people against with JD Vance, right? With JD Vance, where he may not agree with you politically on everything, like my friend doesn't, right? And he may be friends with fucking Tucker, who's insane, right? Forcing him to make a decision would, I think, human nature, especially with Republicans, because we spent over a decade under purity tests from the left. You have to denounce this person, you have to denounce that person, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. And we developed this mentality of, well, fuck you, I'm gonna do it. It's like the ribbon scene from Seinfeld, where Kramer's like, I don't want to wear the ribbon. And they're like, you have to wear the ribbon. He's like, this is America. If I don't want to wear the ribbon, I'm not going to wear the ribbon. Right? So I don't want that to happen, where you maybe accidentally create a self-fulfilling prophecy where you push him further away, when I don't think that this is the best use of time to be attacking JD Vance. I think it's a perfect use of time to attack Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker. I think we should keep hitting Tucker as much as possible. If you expose Tucker to a point where JD Vance can't be friends with him, that's a much better use of time than trying to expose JD Vance.
So, okay, awesome, because that's really the issue, right? Are we doing a good enough job of that? I thought at this point Tucker is disqualifying. I thought that fucking last year, and
Correct.
probably beforehand, because I
100%.
didn't even
He's
like
crossed
him.
the Rubicon.
Right. And if you're looking at JD Vance, and this is now, let's bring it back to the candidate discussion, right? If he's going to be the GOP nominee in 2028 in the same way that a lot of people say he is going to be, then he does need to disassociate from Tucker Carlson, not because of people like,
Eventually, I would say he does.
right, exactly. So when is that going to happen, and why not now?
Well, I don't. That's what I'm saying. What I would do, to go back to my analogy, okay, is what I would do is I would point out all of the ways that my friend's friend is wrong and fucking like communist and this, that, and the other, and I would get like that to be my focal point, as opposed to just going, are you a communist too? Are you a communist too? Is he rubbing off on you? Is he going to infect you with his communist mind virus, right? Or I can trust that my friend isn't a fucking retard, right? And that his friend, who's fucking stupid and crazy, is not going to influence him at all, right? Like, I think that JD Vance is a big boy and he has his own thoughts and his own opinions, and I'm not going to presume that Tucker Carlson is influential over him. I think that that's where most people are getting worried. They think that this shit is contagious, because what they're seeing the sensationalist identitarian grifter movement rising in the social media class, and they're not differentiating the social media class of grifters versus JD Vance, who, it's not going to affect him. He doesn't have a podcast. He doesn't need to do this. So he can go, all right, look, I like Tucker Carlson because I've been friends with him for years, but he does say some crazy shit. I'm not going to go out and publicly attack him for it, just like Charlie Kirk didn't publicly attack Candace Owens. I understand that there's a difference and a distinction between a politician and two friends who are podcasters, but what I'm saying is just the psychology of it is if you try to force somebody to do something. This is the Weimar Germany arrest the Nazis theory, right? Some people, myself included, they are under the belief that when Weimar Germany was arresting Nazis and creating anti-Semitism laws and doing all of this work to try to stop the Nazis, what they ended up doing was actually gave them credence. People were going, "Hey, well, why are they being persecuted?" And that actually contributed to the rise of Hitler as opposed to stopping it, right? So purity tests and trying to force people into your ideology or going a little too hard, it almost always has the opposite effect, which is why I don't think we should go after JD Vance now. But if JD Vance was flirting with stuff, which I don't see, then yes, I think that that's the time. I look, hold, right? Hold. Hold! Just do that. And that's what I think is a more effective use of your time.
Okay, so I appreciate that, just disagree. And I don't even mean that harshly because I hear everything that you're saying. Past experience has led me to believe that when you hold and you hold for too long,
Mhm.
then everything will actually come on and just, tidal wave over you. And that happens for the Jews. And I don't mean this like in America. I mean the Jewish organizations were doing that everywhere. And I hate all of the Jewish organizations, save for like three of them, like Club Z, Orthodox Union, Chabad, obviously. Everybody else don't really like because they held for
Yeah.
so long and they didn't push back in time. And when they then decided to push back, like Jonathan Greenblatt, he's as tough as diarrhea. That guy is weak sauce.
Yeah.
And I just can't take people like that in leadership positions. And so, what I want from JD Vance is to have the strength, and I'm not trying to force him.
Yeah.
I do want him to answer questions.
Sure.
And I want him to answer those questions now because you don't see that he's flirting with it, and I do.
Sure. Well,
Maybe I'm wrong.
here's
Mhm.
where we
Go ahead.
agree. I agree with that sentiment completely. I just think that if you're going to ask the questions, ask an actual question.
Oh, so
Don't do what look, again, I love Sloan. This is not an attack, okay? I think she made a mistake as opposed I'm not going to assume nefarious intent. But if you're going to ask a question, right? Don't go, is JD Vance flirting with Tucker? Like it's just go, hey JD, I'd like you to address this concern that I have. Here's my concern. I think that your relationship with Tucker Carlson is problematic even an optics perspective.
yeah.
And I would like to know your thoughts on Tucker Carlson's behavior, et cetera, et cetera. But if your question is, are you an anti-Semite? That's not a question. That's
Right.
that's where I'm trying to get people to come back to of honest questions, not lawyer tricks.
And like I will say this straight out. The video that I did and the post that I did a couple of days ago, which was in response to Kurt Schlichter, who I love him, love Joel Berry, and all those other guys who are just doing fantastic job for America and especially American Jewry lately. You had pointed that out too, and that's why I actually toned down the rhetoric and proffered five just really basic questions that we've been discussing actually here today,
Sure.
which is what is your relationship with Tucker Carlson? And you said it like be the adult in the room and say, look, he's my friend. I'm a good friend of his, have been for a while,
Mm-hmm.
disagree with every single thing that he's been saying.
Sure.
But we don't have that. And my
Yeah.
concern as a voter and my concern as somebody who sees the Democratic Party not just going progressive, but going straight on socialist is we need to beat that. But
Yeah.
if you are flirting with these people, and I think you are, and I would like clarification
Sure.
because I do think you're flirting with it, I want to vote for you. Again, like Jerry Maguire, help me, help you, help
I,
me, help
I
you.
I agree completely. And it's like, all right. So another example I can give, like, why is TP like look TPUSA booked Tucker before Charlie passed. Tucker has gone to 11 since Charlie's death. And I don't think that this is what I think is going on is a very similar situation to what we're talking about with JD. I think that they think that it would be worse to cancel him from the event, right? And then see all of the headlines of TPUSA and Tucker have a split. I think that they're thinking that would be worse from an optics perspective as opposed to let him come to this one, and then if they continue to book him after that, I have a problem, right?
Yeah.
If they continue to book Tucker Carlson after AmFest, I'm going to have a problem with TPUSA. But I'm not going to assume that until I see that. That's where I'm coming from. I want to wait until I don't have a rational, logical argument for somebody's behavior before I start to make the assumption that that's their intent.
I don't mean this flippantly. You have better patience than I do. I'm
Like,
not a
that's what I'm
patient
saying.
person,
I'm telling
and
people to
so
have patience.
I right. So we're agreeing on that basis. It's like, so it's a matter of timing, essentially. Is that really your contention? That
Mike,
maybe,
yes.
especially with, yeah, the way
That's
that
exa
I,
that's ex my whole entire argument is you have valid concerns and you are jumping the gun. That's my whole debate argument. My entire debate argument is your concerns are valid, your timing is shit. Because if you jump the gun, you push people away. If you start accusing TPUSA of being anti-Semitic, this is what happened with Charlie Kirk, right? When you have now look, I don't think Charlie Kirk was right. I don't, but when he said, I, my Jewish donor just pulled $1 million, I'm thinking about abandoning the Israel cause. Obviously, he didn't mean that, but that is a window into the thought process of people who get pushed away from a certain thing. If Charlie did not see the real Tucker Carlson and he believed in his head he's not an anti-Semite, and Tucker pulled the wool over his eyes, and then some Jewish donor who jumped the gun goes, well, if you have him, I'm pulling my money. Charlie's knee-jerk reaction was, well, fuck this, man. These freaking Jewish donors, they fit into all the stereotypes. I'm so mad right now. Then he probably whoosad, and then after that, he goes, okay, that was just emotional. No, of course I'm not going to abandon the Israel cause. But the knee-jerk reaction, that leaked text that we should have never seen, by the way, that leaked text shows you exactly what I'm trying to tell you. When you push people away from, like when you force people, not push people, when you force people to address an issue that they do not see as an issue, they may double down, right? So I would say patience is what we need right now, and I think that when we level these concerns that are valid concerns, until you have the empirical evidence to back up any claims, or until you have the rationale to form a proper question, right? Don't make assumptions and don't ask stupid questions. That's pretty much what I'm trying to say.
and that makes sense. And it seems like politics, especially lately, is trying to read the tea leaves because we can never get a straight answer. But
Yeah,
that's where
welcome to
we,
politics.
yeah, exactly.
That's
But
not
the
lately,
issue that
that's forever.
forever, well, I don't know. We've had some politicians in the past, especially in America, who would just straight up tell you.
Yeah.
I You kind of look like him a little bit. Do you ever watch the Fat Electrician videos?
No, but I've heard of him.
Okay, fantastic. My favorite thing online, but he's got a video on Cassius Clay, the OG Cassius Clay, not Muhammad Ali, but
Yeah.
the American politician who probably did more to end slavery in the United States than just about anybody, up to and including Abraham Lincoln. That
Yeah.
dude told you what he was going to do, and he was somebody that you could take to the bank.
Sure.
But for this, that's the issue. It's because the politics and the culture, they're kind of flip flopping, right? It
Yeah.
used to be downstream, but now it bleeds into that. And so we're seeing the politicians do the culture war game. And right now, the culture is pretty messed up.
Yeah.
So we need better answers. Like you said, how JD Vance has messed up and a couple of times or slipped, didn't give the best answers. If I'm
Sure.
trying to be as
Yeah.
gracious as
Trump
possible,
hasn't given
that
great answers sometimes, it's
yeah,
just
nobody does. It's
yeah.
tough to do that all the time. But when you're a politician, it's extremely important. And when it comes to this reading of the tea leaves, just like mainstream media, why do all of their mistakes go in one direction? When I look at answers and all of the answers seem to go in one direction, it's not hardcore evidence. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt, but I bet I could get my money if I put down a civil suit, not if I was trying to try a criminal case.
Well,
That's kind of where that issue is for somebody like me.
if you drove a yellow car, right? Yellow's not a popular color for a car. If you drove a yellow car and you're driving down the road and you saw another yellow car, you'd notice it immediately, right? Even though you've passed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars throughout the day, the yellow car is the one that stands out to you. So what I would say is, when you say, even though all of the things are pointing to this, I think what's happening is, because you have a single issue or you have a very important issue, it's the issue that you're looking for, right? Like JD Vance has given so many good answers to so many good questions. Like I said, his interview just last week with Sean Hannity was was stellar, right? He's a very good, and he can be very good. And I think we would both be in agreement. You're not saying that he's lost and he can't
No.
earn your vote, right? And
Mm-mm.
you want more, right? Which is reasonable for anybody, of any politician. But I would say try to step back and look at it from a 10,000 foot view, as opposed to really focusing on only the things that he says that are related to that issue, right? I say this all the time about presidents, right? Or about politicians, sorry. You got to look at them like athletes, okay? Tom Brady was the GOAT. I think that we can all agree. He was
I know
the
where you're going with
GOAT.
this.
He also threw interceptions, right? Tom Brady also got sacked. If you were to say Tom Brady got sacked 16 times in 3 years, oh my god, I go, yeah, but how many touchdowns did he throw? Right? So you have to look at it that way, where it's like, as opposed to, and look, not saying that when Tom Brady throws an interception, you shouldn't go, "Ah, you idiot, you're a bum." I'm saying don't don't look through the lens of mistakes. Look through the lens of overall performance.
I agree with that, but if it was just one area, like we're talking about like JD Vance in relation to American Jewry and Israel, which I didn't think we were going to go as deep on, but glad we did
Mhm.
in the end run. But there are also other issues that I have with JD Vance. But for this one, it God, I hate yeah, okay. So, when it comes to this, it's a really important issue though.
Mhm.
It's shitty right now. And while people are like, "Oh, we do acknowledge it," and you do. You do it better than just about anybody, especially on the onlines. And again, thank you for that.
Appreciate
This issue fucking
it. It
sucks.
does.
On the left, we have jihad. On the right, we are starting to get a crusade. And we're fucking in the middle, and we've seen this before.
Sure.
And people like us aren't going to fucking take it any longer. Telling every Jew, get a fucking gun. It's America. You can
Absolutely.
protect yourself. Yeah, like that's when
I tell everybody, Jew or not, get a gun.
get a gun. I
Get
wanted to wear my God given shirt from the Pew
Yeah.
Pew Jew that
Get a
has
lot
Moses
of
with the
guns. Get so many
right.
get more guns than you need. Charlie Kirk's advice was have more children than you can afford. My advice is get more guns than you can afford. Get
Yeah, my little brother is working on that on the farm right now.
so much ammo.
But the reason that I was going down that was because when it comes to this issue, we need clarification.
Yeah,
And there are people, and I am somebody who probably gets out ahead of issues a little bit before others, but I also don't see anybody really being this forceful. So
sure.
I want the answers now. So
I
I
would say
get it that you're saying
yeah,
hold. Sorry, one
go
second.
ahead.
I get it that you're saying hold, but it's like nah, I don't want to hold any longer because we've been holding on air for a long time and I'm sick of the fucking muzak. So
Sure,
I
sure.
want the operator and I want the operator now. And that operator is JD Vance.
I got you completely, right? And what I would say is, right, the hold strategy doesn't mean do nothing, right? It means, sharpen your blade and check your equipment, and definitely ask valid questions and what have you. But what I think that a lot of people may not realize is when you go after somebody like JD Vance, right? Somebody like Nick Fuentes goes, nice. Nice. Like, fuck yeah, we even got the Jews going after him now. Because they don't like him either. And there's a reason they don't like him, right? Their reason is ignorant. They don't like him because he's married to a brown woman.
Mhm.
So don't do your enemies any favors, right? I mean, look, here's what I would say. If you think that a guy who is married to an Indian woman is going to start adopting the beliefs of Nicholas J. Fuentes,
No.
you are out of your fucking mind, right? Now, I understand that you might want JD Vance to be super into the Jews. And maybe he isn't, but that doesn't mean that he's anti-Jew. That doesn't mean he's anti-Zionist. Some people just aren't as outspoken as me, right? In fact, a lot of people aren't as outspoken as me. I take a big risk by doing this, and JD Vance might be doing risk assessment, right? Where he's fence riding. And fence riding, like I said, it's something that you can call out, legitimately, but it's not really something that I think deserves pushing him over the fence to the other side.
Agree. I'd rather nobody fucking talk, especially about Jews. Like, just leave us the fuck alone. That's our entire thing. Like, everybody lying online
I,
about how the Jews care this much about Christians. It's like, no, we don't.
I
We
think
came
you should.
first.
I think you should get it. I think you should start getting a little bit more like expansionist. I think I think if the Muslims get fucking 62 countries, why shouldn't we?
No, one, we're good.
I
Leave
know
us the
that's
fuck.
what the like this is not to sound insulting, but I think the problem with the Jews is that that's your mentality. Your mentality is leave us alone. We just want our tiny little country, right? And then when it gets too far, then you go, we will fuck up your entire family, right? It's like
So, you know what country it sounds like that says just leave us the fuck alone? When Jews say leave us the fuck alone, what
yeah.
country is that?
I don't know. I'm not.
That's the United States of America. The United States of America
Ah.
is what is religious freedom? Religious freedom, the freedom of religion is leave everyone the fuck alone.
Well, I think the
That's
current
religious freedom.
I think that if you were to read the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, you might be
And the
able to make that. You
anti-federalist
might be able to
papers.
make
Yeah.
that jump. But I think the current America is not leave us the fuck alone. The current America is peace through strength, and we this is I would
Oh,
say
no,
the
sorry.
thing that happened with America is we became a superpower while trying to be left alone. And then we put ourselves into a position where now we have to be everywhere. And I think that now there's no putting the genie back in the bottle.
Sorry, you conflated two things, so I don't think I said that properly. I meant internally in America.
Yeah.
What country is that? Leave us the fuck alone. That's America. How to be an American
Oh, sure.
inside of
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
America
yeah. No, no, no. The
is leave
values,
us the
yeah, the
fuck alone.
values of
Yeah.
America is leave us the fuck alone. Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Right.
You're right. I
I
misunderstood.
love the fact that we're the hegemon. Everything is cheaper.
Yeah,
We get to do whatever the fuck we want, and we are the safest, most secure country in the entire world.
yeah,
Now, granted, previous administrations, specifically the Biden administration, did everything in its power to not just fuck up the world at large, but also here. Like the Louisiana terrorist, that was the October 7th terrorist that was caught about a month and a half ago, that nobody on either side of the aisle wants to talk about.
yeah,
That was because of the Biden administration, not
yeah,
just because of shitty fucking immigration laws, which said, let's let everybody in, but also because he fucked up Afghanistan, which then led
yeah.
to October 7th because he couldn't do anything to hold back Iran.
Oh yeah,
I love that we go out. JD Vance, I don't think he does that. Like, to bring it back to the JD Vance issue, I don't think that JD Vance is that peace through strength guy. I know what you're going to say, and I agree. We don't have the evidence for that. But
sure.
again, I'm just trying to read the tea leaves. And from everything I've seen, with Tipa, or sorry, that was fucking Hebrew, just a drop, right? Just
Yeah,
a drop. We don't have a lot of evidence.
sure.
And that's the issue with Vance. And again, we're in agreement here. So it's kind of fun to have this little debate.
Well,
He
the
needs to answer it.
a
Like that's all I'm saying. And you're saying, hold on. It's like, but I don't want to. So where do we go?
a real debate, and to get off track a little bit, a real debate between two people is to try to find common agreements and have a discussion where we can see the other person's side if we can't agree on something at bare minimum. I think we've gone further than that. And we not only are seeing the other person's side, but we are in agreement on certain things that we might not have been in total agreement on before this debate started. What you see on YouTube with Andrew Wilson, Dave Smith, Piers Morgan, and all these those are not debates. They nobody's mind gets changed in any one of those debates. They come in with a predetermined outcome of the debate, and they leave with the exact thing that they wanted. Which is why I wanted to frame this as a real debate. What you guys are seeing right now is a real debate. And I think we need to get more of these because, again, your concerns about JD Vance's questions and how they are a little bit milk toast, and I I didn't agree with that before, but I came over to your side for that, right? My contention of be a little bit more patient. I think you're moving a little bit more towards me, and that's the point of a debate, right? It's the point of a debate. It's not to completely get you on my side. It's just to sort of uh, at least appreciate what the other person is saying.
Yeah, completely agree. This is so much fun. And I thought it was going to go this way because I know
Yeah.
we have been friendly on X as well. And you were one of the first bigger accounts to follow me. So
Well,
thanks. And
Charlie Kirk
uh,
said to Vance Jones right before he died, he said, "I know that we don't agree on I know that we don't see eye to eye on everything, but I'd like to have you on my show so we can disagree agreeably." Right? So disagreeing
sorry.
agreeably, it's just Charlie was just so eloquent in how he put certain things. I loved that. That's something that I will probably use for years to come. Let's disagree agreeably, and we've done that. So I want to address something in the comments because it's a good point, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Somebody said, I'm wary of voting for Vance because despite knowing about the potential AI risk, he downplayed it and focused on the economic impact. A significant faction of AI researchers, including the fathers of the field, gave a double-digit probability of AI ending humanity, and you're not going to treat it seriously. Vance is chronically online enough to know better. I'm going to just give a small thing and then toss it to you. If we don't do AI, China does, right? That's the bottom line. And I know what I'm not saying I'm not afraid of AI. I am. I think that
Terrifying.
if Elon Musk teaches another fucking robot karate, I'm going to fuck him up. Like if you keep fucking doing this, then we are in trouble. But the problem with AI is if we don't do it, then we're not the only country in the world. So you have to do it. It's not like you can just say, "Well, I'm not going to do it," because China will do it. This is like the argument from the leftists of like, "Oh, we should reduce our carbon footprint." Fucking China and India
In
aren't going
India.
to.
Yep.
So what do? Right? It's like, yes, will it kill us? Maybe, but here's where we are. So what I think that we need to do is we need to create an AI that can maybe prevent their AI from taking out humanity. That's the only way to deal with the AI situation, in my opinion. How about you?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's why I don't like isolationism because power abhors a vacuum. And
Correct.
that's why I think anybody who thinks we need to pull back on the world stage doesn't know what they're talking about. It's the same thing with AI. And because I'm an American, believe that every single technological advancement, yes, will cost jobs in the short term, but will actually make things better in the long term. I know Ben Shapiro uses this example all the time, but
Oh yeah.
these things used to be the hardest things. You
Yeah.
had the Wall Street, right? Where you had Michael Douglas's, or not Michael Douglas's, Martin Sheen's character with the gigantic shoebox phone. It's like, no, now
Yeah.
we have the power of the universe on in our fingertips. Like, okay,
It's
no, we're
hilarious that we
going to
gotten
get better.
dumber.
We just don't know it yet, right? We just don't know it
Yeah.
yet. So, no,
No,
AI is scary as
it's a valid
fuck.
it's a
Oh,
again what we do in these debates is address your concerns and validate that they are real, but it's an impractical suggestion to say that we just can't do AI, because it's again it's look, here's what I would say, here what I like to ease your mind, and this isn't predetermined, but it is a possibility, right? AI gets so big that it decides China's AI decides that it wants to murder everybody, right? We used our AI to build anti-murder machines, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's like if you don't allow the concerns of something to prevent you from using it. Again, to use the analogy of the left with their whole carbon footprint bullshit. It's like, okay, like yeah, like if what you're saying that we should go back to the Stone Age because you're concerned about water levels rising or CO2, and then China moves forward. They don't give a fuck. They just keep on creating more and more coal factories, and they outpace us in the industrial, revolution, the technological revolution, and then we're fucked, right? So what you do is you say, okay, we have to do this. How do we do it safely? And how do we look to the future to make sure that this actually doesn't kill us?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I don't have anything to add. One of the few times where I don't, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's the simplest answer. You can't let somebody else take a dangerous weapon, which is what AI is
Yeah.
going to be and already is. You can't let somebody else take a dangerous weapon and then not use it yourself and not figure out the better way to do it. That's why America is America.
Yeah.
It's not for any other reason besides we came up with a fucking nuke and then the rest of the world decided I'm not going to do anything wrong to you guys.
Exactly. No, you kind of stole my analogy. I was going to use the gun analogy. I was going to use, like, imagine if we just said, "Oh, we don't like we don't like all these weapons that are killing people, so we're going to get bows and arrows." Look at the UK, right? Look at the
Mhm.
UK where they go, "Oh, we're going to ban guns," and then their stabbings and their rape statistics go up, and now they're like, "All right, let's ban knives and let's make knives safer." It's retarded, right? It's absolutely retarded. It's like America has 40% of the world's 1 billion guns. We have the largest standing militia in the fucking world. Our private owners of firearms is bigger than China's entire fucking military, right? So, if they started building fucking slingshots and we went, whoa, dude, that's too far. We're going to stick with rocks. And they started building bows and arrows and they said, all right, we're going to go to slingshots. And they started building a six shooter and we said, okay, we're going to go to bows and arrows. They're just going to use their fucking AR-15 against our bow and arrow. So no, what we
Yep.
need to do is we need to get AI faster than them. It's like the space race. We need to get there first, get there better, stake our claim, and say fuck you, we're better than you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do closing arguments because this was a great discussion. I think we covered everything, unless you have something to add.
No, there were a couple of things, but it wasn't honestly too deep, and it was more because I wasn't sure exactly were we debating if this was going to be JD Vance, the 2028 candidate, my issues with him from a conservative angle. We covered all of the most pertinent things.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I opened, so you can start on the closing.
You know what? I'm going to change how I thought I was going to do this closing because of our conversation. And, more power to you. Thank you, first off, for just a lovely discussion and debate. JD Vance is not a groiper. JD Vance is not an anti Semite. JD Vance actually hasn't done enough to decide one way or another. For people like me, it's very simple. We want answers to the questions. It's not our fault that we have questions of JD Vance. And unfortunately for him, again, extending an olive branch, it's not JD Vance's fault for the most part that we have questions. It's Tucker Carlson's fault that we have questions, but JD Vance hasn't answered those questions yet. We are voters, though. He owes us to answer those questions, not the other way around. And if he can't be forthright with what I think are very, very direct and simple questions that need to be answered, then that's the answer in of itself. Because as Americans, as conservatives, as Jews, we deserve answers from our politicians. We deserve better politicians because things aren't going well right now. We are still in an inflationary cycle. Our economy isn't that great. All of the money in the stock market is essentially in AI, and that's scary, as we brought up. So we have all of these questions that need to be answered. I asked my five on X the other day, but when it comes to JD Vance, the real issue is going to be if he ends up being the 2028 primary, or make that, excuse me, the 2028 nominee, what is his relationship with Tucker Carlson? He is going to, at some point, need to answer that question because the mainstream media that we know is all left wing, right? It's all left wing. We know that they are going to take that relationship and they are going to twist it if it can be twisted. And JD Vance is the one that can cut that knot, but it will be the left wing version of Louis Farrakhan and Barack Obama. And I don't want that as a right winger. I don't want that as a conservative. And it's in the hands of JD Vance to clarify all of those questions and to help make America great.
Good. Yeah. I mean, my closing is going to be pretty short. With JD Vance, I so far I like him, um, and I think that if Charlie trusted him and Trump trusts him, then I give him a little bit more benefit of doubt than some of his critics. But the moment that I see something from any politician, this applies all the way up to Trump, I will call it out. I just think that a lot of people are jumping the gun on this particular issue. And while I think I've made it very clear, I think that the concerns are valid, and I think that some of the concerns are even a little concerning. His response to certain questions. I think that what we will do if we push too hard is create a self-fulfilling prophecy where JD Vance is no longer caring about your cause because he finds you fucking annoying, right? And I don't want that. I don't want you to push him away. I think that Megyn Kelly could have been coaxed to your side and she was pushed away. I also think she's an opportunist, sensationalist, grifting cunt, but I do think that she could have been publicly swayed in your direction, and I think that she was pushed a little too hard. That doesn't mean that Megyn Kelly is this doesn't apply to JD Vance, right? Megyn Kelly, like I said, sensationalist grifter. She's fake. Most of the people you see on here are fake, except for the two people here. Most of the people you see on here are fake. They're doing what they can to create clicks and generate views for their sponsors so they can get money. With JD Vance, he's not a podcaster. He's a politician. Okay. Again, most of them are fake too. But with a politician, you have to treat it a lot differently than you do like somebody on social media. You should 100% ask valid questions. But demanding that you get your thing, right? It doesn't really make you, it doesn't hurt him. It just hurts you. So, like I said, keep your powder dry, but don't stop fighting for what you want out of any elected leader. I think that that's pretty much what I'm trying to say. What I saw with Sloan, again, I want to be very clear, like her, okay, not an attack. I have to say that every time in case somebody clips this shit. What I saw with Sloan, I thought JD Vance's reaction maybe was a little harsh, but I kind of agreed with him, right? You're attacking a kid who has done nothing wrong. Maybe he's a piece of shit, but we don't know that, right? Maybe he's a groiper, but we don't know that. What I do know is one of JD's top staffers is Jewish, right? What I do know is JD's publicly come out in support of the Jewish people. What I do know is he's come out in support of Israel. But if he hasn't done it hard enough for you, and that's your reasoning for saying that he's against you, it's a horrible strategy. So, just zoom out and relax. We're going to be fine. And if JD Vance does start turning into Tucker, you're going to have a massive fighter on your side calling him out every day, because trust me, I am not loyal to anybody. I'm only loyal to my convictions. And my convictions are I stand with the Jewish people. I stand with Israel, kind of, right? Like the government, the nation state, don't really care. But as far as having a democracy in that land as opposed to having a bunch of inbred fucking terrorists running the holy site, I'm always going to go Israel on that one. So, and I think JD Vance is probably under the same belief. So, all right, this was a great debate. And Jake, what I do is at the end of every show, I do a shout out. I do the shout outs. So I'm just going to run through real quick before we do our closing statements, or sorry, before I pivot, before I pitch your social media. And I'm just going to run through everybody real quick. Okay, we got Star Sangle Savage, Eden, Roadrunner 513, D-Links is in here. We got Six Designs, 508 J Fisher. Had some mean words for you, but be nice. On the Edge, Crazy Moan McGroin, Seven Legion Studios, Celestial Heart, and On the Edge. So, Jake, tell us how to find you, what your social media handles are, what you're up to, if anybody wants to, if you want to pitch anything that you're promoting. Don MC 1976 just jumped in with one too, by the way. All right, okay, go.
All of my socials are Red, White, Blue Jew or Red, White, and Blue Jew. Very easy to find me. Jake Donnelly. That's two N's, two L's, and one E. The main thing that I want everybody to know is that I'm not just an online guy. I go and I work with students around the New England area. I teach them how to be proud Americans, proud Jews. Obviously, I do love Israel. So I also teach them about the history of Israel and why it is amazing. A little bit of that, by the way, is also teaching them about Christianity and why Christianity fucking rocks. So I do that as well. Grew up in a farm town. So, everybody was either Protestant or Catholic, and there I was Jewish. Really fun time there. But the main thing that I want to pitch is I am going to hopefully by December 12th have a video series that I'm starting, and it's going to be Jewish heroes throughout history. Gonna do it a la the Fat Electrician. The first one that I'm going to do is Yoni Netanyahu. If anybody knows that name,
Yeah, he
that
follows
is
me.
actually the older brother of Benjamin Netanyahu. And if you don't know his story, it is one of the most sensational stories of all time. It was a guy who was essentially forced into being a warrior for the state of Israel and the only guy to die in the raid in Entebbe, which is maybe the best rescue operation of all time. So Red, White, and Blue Jew, and look out for my Yoni Netanyahu long form video that will be out within the next 2 weeks. And
Awesome,
thank
man.
you again, man.
Oh yeah, no, this was great. Like I said, disagree agreeably, and I think we did that. So appreciate you guys. It is Thursday, so I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.